Hello everybody, welcome to the channel again. Today decided I wanted to talk about some things regarding some I mentioned before, but it's autism um, and how that affects me and what it's like for me in my day-to-day. So basically, it's something, of course, I've dealt with my entire life. Many people say there's some type of lack of perception of social cues related to autism, and I believe there may be some of that. But one of the main things I'm affected by is just conversationalism in general, and whatever my issue is, I've had people who throughout my childhood always asked me, like some other kids that would just ask me like, well, why don't you ever talk, or something like that. And there was always something, every once in a while someone would ask me, why don't you ever talk, why don't you ever talk. And I always was very different, and it was much more difficult to interact with people, and it was much harder to make friends for me. And I had a certain circle of friends, but there were very many times where I was very much on the outside. And that very still rings true today. So overall, I mean, there was something I kind of perceived, but I didn't take a lot of awareness to how much I was talking to other people. In my younger years, that was much more the case, whereas I wasn't being aware of how much I was not talking to other people. As I got older, reached my teenage years, I became more aware of that, and just on some level wanted to change that, but I had problems doing that. Even with knowing it, it was like it wasn't really something I knew how to change or do anything about. It was just like I didn't know what to talk about very often, and how to interact with others. When I reached my 20s, I was very hyper aware of those issues, and I was very adamant on trying to fix those issues. So I've struggled with a lot of friends going through high school. When I while I was living in the Nashville area, I became a Christian eventually, of course, going to college. And then at some point after I took a break from college, I met a bunch of friends there. Well, not college, a bunch of friends at some other church in Franklin. And so that was a group I got very close to, and it was actually kind of not very common for me to have friends at that type of level. I was very I was sort of noticing a lot of the things about why I was not talking, and I was trying to understand it. And there was some point where I was really straining myself trying to fix these shortcomings of mine, because I wanted to do better. I wanted to interact with more people. I wanted to do other things, and really try to break through in a way. And very often I would strain myself trying to fix it, with getting very little out of it. It was just whenever there's some group conversation, I'm just straining, just trying to just say something or something, but not even knowing what to say, or trying to figure out what what's happening in the conversation, to butt in and everything. It was never really anything that was really I had very much success with. There was somebody who there was a few mentors who coached me during that time, and they on how to overcome some of the things and achieve some of the things I wanted, and he meant he some of the things they mentioned helped a little bit. One of which was saying, like, well, you could always try asking those people questions rather than just about them and everything, and that usually gets a good response, and because people like to talk about themselves, and that's something I tried, and I got some okay results from that. Though a lot of those people, they didn't really, despite everything, many different people didn't really want a lot to do with me. Even after that, they would talk to me a little bit, but didn't really achieve what I wanted to do. In the long run, those things didn't really pan out into much. I remember times where I would just pray intensely about fixing this. It's like, God, just let me break through with something somewhere with someone, and it's just like, and there were very rare instances where that prayer was answered, or somebody else prayed that and there was some type of breakthrough with somebody. And there were, those were often short-lived. However, eventually it was sort of like there was a bit of a breakthrough for like one day, and then it was back to normal. So I've seen those times where it was like, I've seen that too. And very common theme. One common theme I had with a lot of the friends during that time, and also the mentors, is that they were saying that just focus on being yourself very often, and not, because God made everyone unique, and that was something they in many ways I felt like I was able to have a bit of trust with them. So those group of friends eventually, however, they kind of reverted back to the whole saying, why doesn't he talk? Why doesn't he ever say anything or something? And it just seemed like, and it was really like it was just going back to the same problems. It's just like I'm once again being kept out on the outside. It's just like everything that I was being told really didn't matter. It was just like, it was kind of a major break in trust with those friends, that eventually they said, it doesn't matter what. And the ironic thing is, for the longest time, those friends were people I opened up more to than I normally do. And maybe I'm not 100% like everyone else, but I did contribute a lot because I felt comfortable. I felt like I knew I could do with people I trusted. But of course, it was never enough, and they were saying, why doesn't he talk? He doesn't talk enough. He's not interacting enough. We need to just not keep him. We don't need to waste our time with him in the group. And so that was that was a bit of a broke my trust with them a great deal. One thing, like I mentioned, is there were some things I was trying to do with trying to, like, some of the people who were encouraging me is just try asking questions and stuff like that, and asking about them and what their lives are, and and I did that a little bit, though I did kind of burn out with that a little bit, since they weren't really reciprocating towards me in any sort of way. And also, of course, I should also say that there are many people who just didn't reciprocate at all. It's like you would ask how I was going. It's like, good. Like they don't like even if you did show interest, they wouldn't want to talk with you. It's just like I've had those people too, and that was hard to deal with. And as I mentioned, as I mentioned, those people, eventually I moved on away from those friends, and that kind of fell apart. But just kind of out of the blue, it exploded, and everyone kind of went their separate ways, like I mentioned before. Um, um, but I mean, after that, I was really kind of at the a really low point, and things didn't get easier. It was sort of like um, when I went to move to Memphis. There were some good times in Memphis, but I mean, there was some with the with the Life Church, of course. There were some struggles there, of course, and a lot of the complaints I've had with those group of friends, to be honest, they kind of stuck with me for a long time, and so there was a lot of times where I felt kind of just angry, guilty, or not good enough, and felt like nothing I did was ever good enough for anything as far as being social with anyone. And my first church down in Memphis, things didn't really help me there as well. There was a lot of there's a lot of things, but I mean, I was struggling with a lot of the other same things. I mean, I remember there was one point where I was just like, there was actually twofold Life Church. It's just one. It was sort of like feeling not as spiritual as everyone else at the time, but then also I was not breaking through in some relational circles. I remember there was one point where I was kind of told by one person there who was sort of had a prominent standing in the church, and he told me just like, if you're diligent, I don't even, this is more paraphrasing, but he said something essentially like, if I'm faithful with my talents and diligent, then God will bless me with the friends that I want, or something, which honestly made things even worse, because now I was feeling like, one, I wasn't good enough socially, but then I'm not good enough spiritually too, because I'm failing at all those other points that certain other people were, I guess, thriving in, and also just social situations, so for a while, from going from on then, when I went to Crossway, that was when I really found a good bit of relief from all those negative feelings that I've been having about myself. Since a large quantity of the people in Crossway have a very accepting attitude, and they're just fine with whatever you do, just whoever you are, and and they just accept you where you are, because I mean, it's just about God's grace there. Of course, they're about offering God's grace in whatever situation you're in, and which is a big deal. Throughout the time while I was in Memphis, early on when I moved to Memphis, there was somebody on Facebook that I knew from my time in Nashville, and I got to hear her story about how she kind of got diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and kind of talking about all the symptoms of it, and I was just like, well, that's really interesting. It just seemed that almost sounds exactly like what I've been dealing with this entire time. And and I talked to her a little bit about it, and she said, yeah, I got diagnosed because I felt like it would really help me in my life, and you could try to do that as well. And I was sort of like, well, I don't know. Maybe I won't. I don't think I'm going to be worrying about that right now, and I feel like I can, press forward a bit, way as I am, and which maybe would have been better to get diagnosed after everything I've been experienced. At least then people would know. But it's something I kept in the back of my head for a few years. Later, and of course, as I was down in Crossway, everything was pretty good. Not perfect, but it was good. Later, when I got married, everything was really good. But it was when I started running in. But then later I started running into problems where I was working. This was actually very, very recent, and there are probably a lot of other factors into why I was experiencing so many problems at my work. I mean, one thing I did consider is that I may be having a lot of communication issues, possibly with some people, and I feel like I felt really strongly that I need to get this diagnosis and get it quickly, before things get really bad. And I was starting to feel that like I need to get this diagnosis at some point, because people are not seeing this about me, and they're not understanding. And of course, it almost was too late. Of course, somehow I made it through whatever the major downfall, whatever happened, and I came out the other end looking very well. Ultimately, which worked out very good, and at the end of everything, things improved. So it's good that things have gotten better there at the work, but eventually I did finally get diagnosed with autism, and so I was kind of thinking to myself, okay, so now that I know this, what can I do? One thing I was thinking about is like, okay, well, maybe I should connect more with other people who are autistic. And there was one autistic group called Autism Tennessee, and I kind of went there, and it was all right. It was over a Zoom, so it wasn't really the most. It was interesting, but I guess as far as the social aspect, it wasn't really giving everything I was hoping. And it also kind of conflicted with some of the things I'm doing. We do at church on Wednesday nights sometimes. So there's that. That's kind of my story. I've been praying about what to do with that, and I'm not really sure. But yeah, hopefully this can turn into something. But thank you all for watching. I think this is the end. I got everything. That's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. I'll find something else to talk about next time. And thank you all for watching. Later. Bye.